What's going on? This is TJ Murphy, and welcome to another episode of Adventurous Entrepreneurs. My guest today is Travis Reill. Travis is an inspiring elementary school teacher turned writer with a passion for mountain biking. After a transformative experience rediscovering the sport during a pivotal time in his life, Travis channeled his newfound passion into a thriving career in mountain bike journalism. He uses his unique journey to inspire others, sharing how mountain biking became a means of healing and growth following his departure from a high control cult. Travis's story is a testament to the power of pursuing one's true passions, embracing change, and finding personal worth in spite of a traumatic past. Just a few of the golden takeaways Travis shares in this episode are rediscovering passion and processing emotions through mountain biking, building a writing portfolio and lessons from early struggles and successes, balancing freelance opportunities and building a brand, and creative strategies for reaching out and getting noticed. So without further ado, this is me and Travis Reill. Welcome to the Adventurous Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm your host, TJ Murphy. Since quitting my corporate 9-to-5 and starting a business while backpacking through Asia back in early 2017, I've had the privilege of learning from some incredibly adventurous entrepreneurs. Through these conversations and my own journey, I've learned that much like in life, entrepreneurship is an adventure. On this podcast, I explore the journeys of top-performing leaders in their fields. These wide-ranging conversations include tactical business advice, how I built this insights, lessons in leadership, life hacks, travel stories, favorite hobbies, and insights into living a purposeful and joy-filled life. Adventures await us, so let's dive in. Hey, Travis, welcome to Adventurous Entrepreneurs.
Hey, TJ, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, man, been looking forward to this one all week. We're sitting here on a Friday afternoon. The sun is shining. It's a beautiful day, so I appreciate you taking the time to share some value with our audience. And you've had quite a journey from being an elementary school teacher to now a writer specializing in mountain biking, which is a big passion of yours. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired that transition?
Yeah. So, real quick, I might say the word journalism a bit, and it's funny because is what I do journalism? I don't know, but talking about writing, mountain bikes, writing, like it can kind of get confusing. So I might throw in the word journalism here and there, and I apologize in advance to like any hardcore journalists that are like, writing for the New York Times or anything. They're like, that's not real journalism.
Yeah, whatever. We're here to stir the pot every now and then. So.
But yeah, so I apologize in advance to any of your listeners who they're the hardcore journalists. But so I kind of have this crazy, hopefully interesting story that kind of all ties in with me being an elementary school teacher and then leaping into the world of mountain biking journalism. And it's also connected to this crazy church that I was a part of that was, I guess, for lack of a better word, basically a cult. And I won't, I know that the audience probably isn't here to learn about cults. That's a different podcast.
You can share as much as you want, man.
Yeah.
It's my podcast and I'm curious. So
So yeah, it was in 2006 I helped start this church, and it's always tough to say like how, like, I was in a cult for X amount of years, because we certainly didn't start as a cult. It just got progressively more controlling. The leader got more controlling as time went on. And one of the values that we held in that particular church was this idea of other people's needs are more important than my own needs, and that even extended all the way into what occupation you're going to choose. And so rather than this idea of I'm going to pursue my dreams and go be a this or be a that, whatever those things are, we had this value of asking the other members of the church, what do you think would be beneficial for me to do for an occupation? What do
Mm.
we need? What would be helpful? And I had already been working in education, in elementary education, working in special ed as an aide at that time. And it was very convenient to have summers off. It was a great job as a, post, I just gotten my undergrad and coming out having this job where I had summers off and worked it out. So I got paid and everything. It was like, yeah, this is awesome. And it just seemed like for the church's needs, that was going to be the direction that I continued in, was in education. So
Yeah.
I went back and got a master's degree, got my teaching license, and I was a elementary school teacher. I guess I technically still am an elementary school teacher. I have a license and I substitute teach here and there. I haven't in several months. But as maybe you can imagine, things went bad and a lot of things were discovered about this particular leader of our church, and that he was abusing a bunch of women, a bunch of people, and women in particular.
Hmm.
And so everything kind of fell apart. And that was in 2021. And my wife and I, we had met in the church. We had two kids by that point. They're pretty small.
Yeah.
And we left, as kind of just everybody did. And that was the first time, really, that in my adult life I ever had like kind of this opportunity to say, what do I want to do? And so I reconnected with mountain biking, as just it was a hobby of mine in high school, and after the church I jumped back into it, and I said, gosh, it would be so awesome to do something within the mountain biking world. And without working in a bike shop or doing some sort of racing or competing it at a higher level in mountain biking, it can be hard to jump into the industry.
Totally.
And being, I was in my early 30s at the time, and I was like, I don't know if I want to, I just gotten this master's degree and my teaching license and all this stuff. And the idea of like walking away from all that to go start a probably pretty entry level job in a bike shop is like, oh, that's probably not in the cards. And so fortunately though, my wife she is a writer as well. And I was kind of thinking, maybe I'll do that, the writing thing like she does, but just in the mountain bike space. And I was able to write something and send it to her, and I said, give me your honest opinion. Be mean if you have to, because this is, our family's livelihood. If I'm gonna switch careers and pursue this, we need to make sure that it's gonna work. So she read it and was like, hey, this actually isn't too bad. And so I kind of pushed into that world and started pursuing mountain bike journalism, if that's what we're gonna call
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I love it, man. There's lots of little tangents we could go down here, but I'm curious if you're comfortable talking about it. Your story about leaving this high control church cult, whatever we want to
Mhm.
call it. I'd imagine, and I've been able to glean from some of your writing that there was some trauma related to that. And mountain biking seems like it was an outlet for you during that time. Like how did you go about, or what led you to rediscover your passion for mountain biking, and how did that ultimately help you process from those experiences?
Yeah, so I think, like I said, I mountain biked in high school. I'm originally from Bend, Oregon, where we now live again. And Bend, Oregon is a huge mountain bike
Yeah,
town.
it's a mecca
And
for sure.
so So growing up here, you kind of you're probably gonna go mountain biking once or twice, and I fell into it and absolutely loved it. Moved away to the big city, to Portland, and just kind of fell away from it. Not enough time to do it, and ended up selling my bikes and all that stuff. And then it was also I do remember thinking back. I can remember a time with the leader of our church where we had this. I don't know how we got into this conversation, but he was just talking about these sports like mountain biking, snowboarding, skiing, how they're just very selfish and individualistic, and they're so expensive. They're elitist sports, all these things. And I'm sitting there, I haven't mountain biked in years. I definitely want to mountain bike in the future, but here he's, saying all these things, and I'm just going like, oh gosh, like I don't know. And um, so I think I kind of thought maybe I'm never gonna mountain bike again. I don't know. And uh, it's kind of a funny bit to this story is a year or two later from having this conversation with him, his son, who was roughly 16 at the time, desperately wanted to start snowboarding because all of his buddies snowboarded, and so now all of a sudden snowboarding was no longer one of these elitist selfish sports. It was snowboarding,
Yeah.
skiing were okay to do because his son wanted to. But yeah, so I took like a 15-year break or so from mountain biking and moved back here to Bend, Oregon, and didn't really think like, oh, maybe I'll jump back into the sport. But if you know if you're around Bend in the summertime, you won't go 5 minutes without seeing like somebody's mountain bike on the back of their car,
That's
right?
for
And
sure.
so
Yeah.
I was just seeing all these bikes, and I also kind of always followed mountain biking, even though I wasn't actively engaged in the sport. I would follow it on social media, or I would follow it on just websites like way back before social media was big. And you'd get on and check your Facebook, and I would check my Facebook and then go to a bunch of mountain biking websites. So I kind of always stayed up to date a bit. Uh, but moving back, just seeing all these bikes, and I just started talking to my wife, and I was like, Amanda, I want to get back into mountain biking. I want to get a bike. And it's a big commitment because they are expensive. And so I fortunately she was like, yeah, go ahead. We can do that. And I got back into it and I started riding. And really at that point it was just for me getting back into riding. There was no thought of like this is going to be therapeutic or
Hmm.
whatever. And at that time in my life, the best time for me to ride my bike was early in the morning, and that's actually still when I do most of my rides throughout the week. Like I got up today at like 5:15 and
Nice.
was at the trails by 6:30. So I still do a lot of it early in the morning, and the trails are very quiet, not a lot of traffic then. And those early days of getting back into mountain biking, I just found myself on the climb, just sitting with my thoughts. And I came to a very conscious point of like, I'm either going to have to just very knowingly suppress these difficult things that I've gone through and have now just been discovered
Yeah.
in the last several months, or I'm going to have to confront them head on and work through them. And so yeah, it was never something that I set out to do, but I found just mountain biking, being alone in the woods with my thoughts, to be very therapeutic. And I can think back to these times where, yeah, I got to the point in my life where I said, or got to the point in my processing where I said, gosh, I think I was in a cult. And just being able to like say that, there was a lot of freedom with just, I'm going to say that and be able to move on from there and not try to, because it's embarrassing, it's like, man,
Totally.
like I would let somebody control and take advantage of my life for the last 10 years, 15 years, however long it was.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of freedom in just being able to like confront those things and move on. And I actually recently there's a mountain biking publications, very large one called Free Hub. I was able to share a little bit of my story and finding healing a bit through mountain biking, but also chat with um, like veterans that are suffering from PTSD and have used mountain biking to uh, battle that, and not only just using mountain biking but finding that community of other veterans that are doing the same thing. And then
Yeah.
I chatted with another group um, that are victims of sexual abuse, that same thing, they're using mountain biking to uh, heal and move on. And I chatted with some therapists and with a neurologist. And yeah, there definitely is some very healing aspects to getting on a bike, being alone or being with a group,
Yeah.
and riding in the woods. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can attest to that just from a sense of when I'm having real rough times in my life. I think the best outlets for me have always been individualized sports or like pushing
Yeah.
towards a goal, whether that was training for a marathon or like you, I love to mountain bike. And especially in the mornings when it's quiet, like if I'm having a tough time, I know if I get out there and pedal really hard and go do a long ride where it's silent and it's peaceful, I'm going to have a lot of time to really just sit with my thoughts and work through some physical pain, but also for me that helps me work through the mental pain as well. And I've had some good realizations that way. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to link, and we'll put it in the show notes, to that article because it was an excellent piece of writing and really a deep dive into, yeah, using mountain biking as the example in this case, but you can use that as a lens to think about lots of other different
Right.
activities and just ways of going about dealing with trauma. So I appreciate you being open and honest and brave to share that with the world because I think it's a powerful thing.
Yeah, for sure. I, appreciate the space to be able to do that. So yeah.
Yeah. So let's transition a little bit back to this big career switch because
Yeah.
like you said, I mean you poured in a lot of time and effort into getting this master's degree and becoming a teacher, and obviously I'm sure there was a lot of like risk evaluation and just feeling of, oh man, I put all this effort in, is this going to be a sunk cost if I go and make this big change and dive into journalism, which we'll keep calling it because I like it. So what were some of the biggest challenges you faced when you were just getting started, when you first made that switch?
Yeah. So, and who know, I guess the story is still yet to be written on whether it is a lost cause or not. Maybe I did just sink a bunch of money, probably, but I'm happy doing what I'm doing. But yeah, we like I said, I just dove back into mountain biking, absolutely loved it, and was like, man, I want to work in the industry somehow. Maybe I can do this writing journalism thing. And right away, the first thing was the the biggest hurdle to overcome was I didn't I didn't have anything. Like I didn't have any published articles. I didn't have anything that I could, pitch ideas to an editor and say, oh hey, go look at this. And so the first thing is just getting out there and getting people to say, yeah, write that for me. And what I first started on was there's some websites that are like for freelancers, kind of gig websites. Um, gosh, I'm Fiverr,
Yep.
Upwork, those sorts of things. And that's where I first started. And it was yeah, I mean, I think one of my very first articles I made like maybe $80, and it was over 4,000 words, and it
Yikes.
might be out there on the internet somewhere. I don't think that my name was connected to it.
Okay.
Uh, but I was definitely in that place where I knew I needed to build a portfolio, and I currently didn't have anything that I could say, yeah, here's the writing that I've done. And so I was pretty much just taking whatever people would give me. People would reach out. I had on my profile that I was like an outdoor content writer.
Yeah.
And so people were reaching out, and I was just like, yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll do that. And it was a lot of work. I didn't really make a lot of money. And it's also it was a pretty steep learning curve as well, just working with people and getting excited that, like, oh my gosh, somebody wants me to do this work for them. And I start doing it, and I get the first draft, and I send it over to them, and I realize, oh, we never like officially went over the contract, and
Mm,
just like
yeah.
learning things like that, that it's like I was so excited and so eager to get going on it that fortunately nobody took advantage
Took
of me.
advantage of you.
That
Good.
that
Good.
happened for sure once, where I sent like a couple pages of writing and then realized we never actually formally agreed to anything because we never, clicked yes on contracts or anything.
Hmm.
So it was definitely a steep learning curve. But that hopefully made me a little bit more knowledgeable as time went on. You only ever have that like panic of like, oh my gosh, I think I just lost out on a bunch of money. That only needs to happen one time before you make sure
You
that
learn.
contracts are signed and
Yeah.
we're all ready to go. So, but yeah, I mean, that was really just the biggest hurdle, was getting to the point where I at least had a bit of a portfolio where I could point people to and say, like, yeah, here's some of the things that I've written, and it's not just me like
Mhm.
sending a Word document to them. They a lot of times editors might ask, like, hey, can I see some of your writing? And when I first started, I couldn't give them links to websites with my
Oh
writing on there.
gosh.
It was just, here's something that I'm pitching out to people, and it was just like a Word doc. And I'm sure that they knew, like, oh, this guy's very green, like he must not have anything published. Um, but yeah, you just kind of, I imagine that's kind of how it is. And
Everybody starts at zero, right?
yeah,
Doesn't matter what you're doing.
you're starting down at the very bottom and hoping that you can climb your way up fast enough that like it can be feasible to actually do this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, yeah, everybody starts at zero, and clearly you went about it, I mean, in my opinion, the right way. But I'm curious because I want to circle back to think what you would do differently. But when you don't have a portfolio, when you don't have the experience, you really do need to kind of do work for less or for
Yeah.
free, or just be very strategic about how you can go about getting in front of the right people and getting those at bats to pitch yourself. But as you build up the momentum, as you grow that portfolio, you now have something to lean on, you have something to show, you have more credibility. And I'd imagine you took on just about everything you could get in the beginning that came your way. When did you get to that point where you were like, all right, I know I have value, I have a little bit more of my portfolio built out? Was there a transition where you went from saying yes to everything to kind of learning to say no, and recognizing your worth in this
Yeah.
field?
Yeah, for sure. That was a big learning point for me, was, yeah, understanding my value as a writer. And it it took a while because, yeah, there's always that, if you start saying no to some things, what if those things that you anticipate saying yes to actually don't come? And it's scary. Like, do I do I do this work that I for sure have that I'm going to get paid a bit less for, quite a bit less for, or do
Mhm.
I go after bigger jobs, more what I would have said are more important, more valuable to me as I'm trying to build this career in, mountain bike journalism. And yeah, I had this cycle, and this is nothing against Upwork or these sites that people gig on and freelance on. It's how a lot of people get their start. But I got into these cycles where somebody would reach out to me and they'd be like, "Hey Travis, we have this job. It doesn't pay much. It should be really quick, and if you can bang it out for us, we have a ton more like it." And so I do this thing and just get paid a, ridiculously low amount of money and do all this work and hand it off to them. And then the next day I'm reaching out saying, "Hey, like, I'd love it if you could send some more work my way." And then the next day, same thing. And then a week later, still reaching out and never hear back from them. And then 3 months later, 2 months later, they reach back out. "Hey, Travis, we have this job. It doesn't pay a ton, but we have a ton more work." And it's just
Same
kind of,
story.
man, is like, that's what you said to me last time, and you never gave me more work. And uh, also during this point when I was experiencing that, I realized that if I took some time and went on the internet and started trying to track down emails for editors, like
Yeah.
all of these publications that I write for, there's a good chance that I can find an email to a person, to the managing editor or to the editor in chief, whoever it is. And I realize that I can email these individuals directly and they'll actually get back to me. And I it was it was crazy. I think I pitched a bunch of people directly and I got a lot of no's back, but it was like, oh, but they still like
They still
responded.
responded.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, and it wasn't no, don't ever contact us again. You're a terrible writer. It was just no, we're gonna pass on that idea.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, like boom, I had a connection. Like I now have just an email that I can click reply on and send another idea. And so I kind of had these two conflicting points in my career where it was like, do I chase this thing on these websites where they're giving me work, but it's not good pay? Or do I sit down and spend a couple hours not getting paid, but spend that same amount of time and actually pitch to mountain bike publications that pay a lot more than these other places? And I found that, gosh, like I started eventually getting yeses from them. And I remember, yeah, I remember my first big like yes from a publication, and that was like all of a sudden like, oh gosh, now I have
I
to
got to
actually
fulfill on
like
this.
do that.
Yeah.
And I had this big idea of talking about how mountain biking trails get built, and my hypothesis was that it's a much bigger project than probably the majority of trail users think. And so I was like, I want to talk to trail builders and I want to talk to mountain bike trail organizations, their executive directors, and all of that stuff. And I pitched it, and the publication was like, "Yeah, go ahead and do that. And here's your deadlines." And I was like, "Oh gosh, now I actually have to do this thing." But yeah, I kind of realize, man, I can spend my time making kind of pennies over here, or I can spend my time not making the pennies in hopes to, making a much higher income per article if I just take that time and pitch. And I don't remember how far it was into my writing career, but I definitely remember sitting in a coffee shop and I got an email from one of those like, "Hey, like we have this job, like it doesn't pay much." And I was sitting there working on a different article that I was getting paid like 10 times the amount than this other one was offering me for this article I was working on. And I just kind of had that moment of like, no, no, like I
I don't
emailed
need
them
this.
back, and I'm sure my email was very courteous and professional, but it was like, no, you need to pay me a lot more if you want me to do that. And yeah, that was that moment of like realizing my value as a writer. It definitely kind of changed the trajectory of my career because I went home and I was still kind of torn between whether I'm just going to contact these editors directly, or am I still going to focus a lot of my time on these websites trying to drum up work. And my wife was just like, hey, you seems like you get a lot of responses from these editors. Like, shift all of your time over to there, because clearly, like, you make a lot more money
The
doing
ROI there
it
is far greater
than,
on your
yeah,
time. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And it was like I was just constantly worrying about these websites because they did give me work, but
Yeah.
um it just, yeah, it was terrible. So yeah,
Mm. It's like that little just dopamine drip you're getting
I
from those, Upwork, Fiverr, freelancing sites. But I love the evolution of this story because I mean, in the beginning, yeah, you do need to get the reps in. No matter what you do, you need to be proficient and build up your credibility, build up your skill set. And there are, ways to do that, which are gonna not pay you well, or maybe you're gonna have to work for free in the beginning, but not getting stuck there where you're just getting that little hit every time and you're like, oh well, there's some money to be made, I'm going to keep coming back to it. I love how you were able to transition your focus and say, no, look, like these are the types of articles that I want to be writing. These are the publications that will really help me build out my credibility in my portfolio. How can I get in front of the decision makers here that, yeah, even if they say no, I'm probably going to be able to get a feedback loop going and learn what they're looking for
yeah,
and
exactly.
refine my pitch over time and get better at this process. And yeah, I'm going to get a lot of no's, but even one yes is going to be a far greater use of my time than getting those little bits here and there from Upwork or Fiverr. So kudos to you for realizing your worth. Some people get stuck in that hamster wheel for a very long time,
Yeah,
and it sounds like you didn't, man. So
yeah,
that's an incredible journey to have been on. And for people who, whether they're writers or doing something else completely different, like given what you went through, what would you recommend in terms of like some specific actions that people could take to start pursuing a new venture, a passion, and doing it the right way versus making some mistakes along the way? Or like said differently, what are some practical tips for you that looking back you would give to people who want to market themselves and launch a new business or new career faster?
yeah. It's by no means am I any sort of career guru. Somehow I stumbled and fell into this thing and did it right. I mean, you're gonna make mistakes for sure. Like there was lots of mistakes along the way that fortunately me and my family were able to bounce back from.
Yeah.
Um, Definitely, knowing what you're selling. For me, I am selling this article idea to these different publications, but I'm also kind of selling myself and my style of writing and my voice and all of those things, and what I am bringing to the publication. And
Yeah.
that
Your brand. I mean, over
yeah,
time, that's what you're
yeah,
building. You're building your brand with every article that you write, and that brand continues to build its equity and value
yeah.
over time.
And sometimes that can be difficult going into an established publication. One of the publications I write for has been around since the late 90s. And so, they are already a very established brand. And so you do have to kind of morph and figure out how am I going to fit in here? But you need to know what sort of value you bring to them. And for me, a lot of like a lot of that was understanding what that publication actually covers. Um, I'm going to bring value by not wasting people's time and not throwing out these ideas of, hey, I want to review this mountain bike and this set of wheels and these mountain bike shoes. And I've contacted a brand that doesn't really, or a publication that doesn't really focus on mountain bike reviews, right? They don't do reviews, and they're like, hey, you contacted the wrong people, right? So a
Know
lot
your
of times it
audience.
can be just understanding what they want and what they're looking for, and don't waste your own time and don't waste their
Don't
time
waste other
by,
people's time. Do your homework.
yeah, do your homework. Go and that was one of the biggest things that I learned. Um, I actually, so this project that just came out, this Free Hub article that I mentioned about my story and these other folks that are healing from trauma, I pitched them early on in my career, and it was that I got an email back that it was a very kind and professional email, but they basically told me that they recommend I go to their website and read some
Mm,
of their articles, so that I can kind of get an idea for what type of content they have, and that was helpful not only for them and eventually being able to be published there, but it was helpful just going forward with any publication, like, oh yeah, I'm going to do my homework and before I just throw out these random ideas. um but yeah, I also, one of the things that I had to learn, that it was a tough learning curve for me, is that it's okay to bother people. I definitely lean on the side of like, I'm gonna send I'm going to send TJ one email. And if he doesn't respond to me, like, I'm just going to be like, oh, like, he must hate my guts. Like, I'm not,
yeah.
and so he never wants to hear from me again. So I would kind of, I could do that with, I would send out a pitch and not hear back from the editor. And I'd be like, okay, they must not. And my wife, who was kind of on the other side of things, as she was somebody who was getting emails, she's just like, no, like, hey, they have a whole inbox of emails that they're going through each day, and then tomorrow it starts over.
It fills
And
back up.
yeah, and they just haven't gotten to you yet. And the best thing that you can do is a few days later, send them that email that says, hey, just circling back to this, making sure you saw this. And that was definitely I mean, that's something that I'm trying to think of if I have any. I can't think of a time more like very recently where I've like, I don't want to reach out, because I have kind of gotten beyond that, but it took quite a while for me to
Yeah,
get comfortable with just, and the reality is the worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to say, no, please stop contacting me. And that's
exactly.
never happened. I get no's all the time, but it's always no, not right now, but please reach out again. And so, yeah, just getting over that. I don't know if it's a lack of confidence or just not wanting to be a bother, not wanting to be a nuisance. That's definitely how my personality leans. And you have to bother people. And I mean, I
Yeah.
know it's the same in other industries as well.
Certainly the same in my industry,
Yeah, like, as especially since we're all online now and a lot of us are at home, you got to just keep bothering people until you get a response.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there is a right way and a wrong way to do it,
Sure,
right?
yeah,
Like you got to
yeah.
be professional. I mean, in an ideal world, you're thinking outside the box, you're getting creative. How can I
Right.
do something that's going to stand out from, like you said, they've got probably 100 emails in their inbox, or they got 100 applications sitting there in the stack. What are you going to do to make yours be that thing that just stops the scroll and gets their attention? And if you
Yeah,
don't hear back, okay, cool. How can I get in front of this person other ways? They've maybe seen my email, maybe they haven't. Maybe I
right.
can jump on LinkedIn and
Yeah,
get in
yeah.
front of them that way. Maybe I start engaging with their content and giving them, value and respect for things that they're putting out into the world. And eventually, if you're consistent, they're going to see you. They're gonna be like, oh yeah, that was that Travis guy. I think I got an email from him. Let me
Right.
look at that. Maybe that guy does have some good stuff to share with me. So don't give up until you get the no at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, I've definitely taken advantage of social media. I've gotten a lot of just, yeah, different publications that I write for. I've been able to connect with people because of LinkedIn or because of Instagram. Yeah, I mean, it definitely, you send that email, they haven't gotten back to you, find them on Instagram, find them on LinkedIn, and just shoot them a message. Hey, like, just reaching out because I sent you a pitch and wondering if you saw it. It goes a
Yeah,
long ways, and it's a bit more personal than just an email. So yeah.
totally. And 90% of people aren't doing that. So you're immediately setting yourself apart from the regular crowd,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is going to
Hopefully.
get you attention.
Yeah.
All right, Travis. So I mean, you're a family man, and regardless of what our situation in it is in life, one of the biggest hurdles, especially when you're out on your own running a business, is living a well-rounded life, like having the time outside of work to do the things that bring us joy with the people that we care about most. So a question I always ask is, what does that look like for you? How do you balance, blend, live a well-rounded life, whatever you want to define it as, but how do you structure things so that you can optimize for the freedom that you ultimately want to have in life?
Yeah, that's it's funny because it's always different for everybody. And there's no, when my wife and I, when we talk about this, we don't, it can almost come across as like the way that we've decided to do it is better than
Yeah,
this over here or that over there. And it's certainly not, but it is just kind of like you described. It's just this way that we've decided these are the most important things in our life, and so we're going to structure our life around that. And for us, especially coming out of the church situation we were in, we were just always busy all the time. There was always something. There was always a business that needed attended to. There's always a house that needed built. And so I spent a lot of time just away from the wife and kids. And we, in this phase of our life, have decided how can we structure things so that we are together the most amount of time during the day. And that's great. Sometimes it's like, oh man, like the kids drive you crazy, but that's what we signed up for.
yep,
um but yeah, so we've intentionally gone into jobs that keep us at home, that keep us together. Obviously, if I was continuing to pursue teaching, I
teaching.
would
Yeah,
be leaving the house at 7 a.m. and probably not getting home until 4 or 5 every day. And summer's off, that's great, but
yep.
it's just we didn't want that for our kids. And we are incredibly fortunate that we were able to not have those 9 to 5 jobs. And right now, uh, Amanda and our kids, they are, I think, with some friends. No, maybe they're done with their friends at a park with a splash pad, and they've gone on to my grandma's. But we've integrated our work and our life so that in the middle of the afternoon, if we get a text or the kids want to go, hey, like we'd love to go meet these friends at the park,
You
if
can
we
do
can,
that.
we can do that. It
Yeah,
takes a little bit of scheduling.
yeah.
Sometimes you can't do that, but we can do that. It's never like, well, between the hours of 8 and 5 we can't do that because mom and dad are at home, and
On the clock.
yeah, you guys are at daycare, or you guys are at after school program, or whatever it is. No, we can do that. And it's going to mean that mom and dad are going to work like after dinner. And so that can be challenging, and our kids sometimes hate that. But it is just the reality. It's a trade-off. And we we work on the weekends because sometimes we don't work on Tuesday. We have something going on, and that's it. It also extends into what we've decided with our kids and schooling. We do a charter school for my son and eventually my daughter, where they're only there 1 day a week. And it gives us a lot of freedom to be like, hey, if we want to go visit my sister in Portland, we can do that. Like his, his school gets out on Tuesday's the day that he goes, and it's like we can pick him up Tuesday after school and head to
Head on
Portland,
out.
not come back until Monday evening if we want. And so we've tried to structure our life around that schedule of just being together and having the most amount of freedom that we can. Because yeah, I mean, and again, it's we feel very privileged that we can do that. Not everybody can do that. A lot of people have 9 to 5 jobs where they have to go clock in at the office. And but yeah, I mean, things like things like school, they're very it's very time consuming. I mean, kids are there from 7:45 until I think it's 2:15 when they get out
Yeah.
here in Bend, and you're not really getting around that schedule. And the district doesn't really like it when you're like, oh, we're going to pull them out for a week. And then, 4 weeks later, we're like, oh, we're going to pull them out again. It just doesn't sit really well with them. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we've tried to just kind of structure our life so that we can do these things, and we can work on Monday, Tuesday, take Wednesday off, Thursday, take Friday off, work Saturday, Sunday, and it's working so far.
Sounds
So
like it's pretty harmonious. And what I love is that, I mean, so many people just react to what life throws their way, or what is considered the norm or the regular routine to follow. But yeah, given circumstances, sometimes you are stuck in something and you got to work through that until you're unstuck. But when you have that conscious thought process of designing your life and then your work around how you want that life to look for you, maximizing time together as a family, even
yeah,
during the week and during the middle of the day, sounds like that was very important to you. So making that conscious decision of going through this transition away from the church and then away from being a teacher, but doing that with the thought of, hey, no, we're going to like educate our kids and we're going to be around them and we're going to be a part of their life and we're all going to be together and we're going to try to build these businesses, even though we're starting from zero, and we're going to do it. And if it doesn't work out, we'll figure out what comes next, but we're going to give it all we got. And
yeah,
right now you're in the mix and you're getting to reap the rewards from it because you were intentional and designed it the way you wanted it to be.
yeah, yeah. And it's definitely there's definitely like a
Yeah.
prioritor. I can't say that.
That's a hard prioritization.
Prioritization. There's a reprioritization
Yeah. Yeah.
of just the values, and like for us, even more so than, oh, I want to be a mountain bike journalist. I mean, it's really rad. I already I've reached the point where I am frustrated about the amount of bikes and bike components and gear and everything that are in my garage,
Oh
that's in
man,
my garage
good
right
problem to have.
Right, yeah, it's like, what a terrible thing to whine about. But,
Yeah.
no, I mean, it's great, but the reality is that I do it because, like, our highest value is being together as a family. And so if we can find careers that work to accomplish that goal, like, that's super awesome. And fortunately, this career as a mountain bike journalist, kind of checks that box. Or else, yeah, I think I would maybe be trying to find something else. So
Yeah. Oh man, I love that you've been able to share this story with us today, Trav. So as we move to wrap up, if you could leave people listening with one key takeaway from your journey, or just a parting thought, what would that be?
yeah, so not to be too cliched, but I think that it is kind of the follow your dream sort of thing. I was this kid who grew up with uh I never wanted to be. I was never the kid who was like, oh, I want to be a fireman or a
Mm-hmm.
policeman or an astronaut. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. It was never I want to be an elementary school teacher. That was fine.
Or a mountain bike journalist, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
or a mountain bike journalist. But I mean, yes, we went through this crazy thing with this church thing, and that was all pretty wild. But I never thought that in my early 30s that I was going to get this opportunity to kind of start again, and I remember those conversations with my wife of just her saying like, what, like, if you could do anything, what would it be?
What a big-
And this mountain biking thing was really impactful because, like I said, I dove back into it, and all of a sudden I started like having this healing process from just riding my bike. And so yeah, just that idea of, man, I don't know, like, I want to be in the mountain bike industry somehow, but I mean, no, like that can never happen. And yeah, being able to go for it. I think, don't be afraid to go for it. And I am very fortunate to have a wife that pushed me really hard. And when I was afraid to go for it, she was not afraid to push me to go for it. And so that's certainly a big factor. But I never thought, I remember telling her when I said this is what I want to do, that back to kind of that idea of I want to be this, when you're a little kid. I remember telling her that, like, man, if people sent me mountain bikes to ride, if people sent me on trips to like go do media coverage for mountain biking things, that would be like a little kid who is like, I want to be in the NBA when I grow up, right? And I I was she pushed me into that, and it was a huge risk and it was scary, but we went for it. And like, yeah, it's just crazy on this side of time that, like I said, like, I'm complaining about a garage full of
full of the
mountain
gear that
bikes.
you've always
So
wanted to
yeah,
have.
yeah,
Now, man, life's too short not to go for it, right? If we don't
sure,
shoot our
yeah,
shot, we'll never know. So whatever it is, and maybe it can't happen right now, but you can start to put the wheels in motion to be able to get up there and take the shot at the end of the day. So I love that. It's not
yeah.
cliche, and even if it is a little cliche,
A little cliche, but
sometimes those are the best things that we need to hear. So,
yeah.
Trav, where can people find and connect with you online? What are the best medium, social media, website, or anything like that to find
Yeah.
and connect with you?
I I have a portfolio that I can't think of the name. I'll send it to you so you can share it because it's connected to my email. But honestly, the best way is through Instagram.
Yeah.
My handle is Travis Reill Writes. My last name is Reill, but I'm guessing I should have said it this way. It's Travis underscore Reill underscore Writes. So yeah, that's probably the best way of communication is Instagram.
Perfect. Well, we'll
Yeah.
put the links to the portfolio and
Yeah.
definitely your Instagram in there, so it's easy for people to follow your work and get in touch if they want to. And I just want to say thanks, man. This has been a really fun conversation. It's been great to learn a little bit more about your journey and your story, and just hear about some of the lessons you've learned along the way. Lots of value in there for people listening in. So thanks for joining me.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me, TJ. It's been awesome.
To all of our Adventurous listeners, thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Please be sure to subscribe, download, and share this on social media or with someone you know will get some value from it. Leaving a review goes a long way in helping people find the show, and I personally appreciate reading them when they come in. So please go drop one if you have the time. We'll see you all next week, and remember, whether we're talking about business or the things that bring us joy outside of work, life is meant for exploring. So go out there and live it one adventure at a time.